The billionaire boss ordered his guard to follow the maid. What she did that night shocked him. Alexander Sterling had built his empire on observation. Details others missed became his advantages. So when Elena Morales, the quiet maid who cleaned his penthouse suite at the Grand Meridian Hotel, began exhibiting unusual behavior, he noticed. It started 3 weeks ago. Elena, always punctual and meticulous, had arrived with shadows under her eyes. Her hands, usually steady as she arranged his morning coffee, trembled slightly. She'd apologized for a water glass left on the marble counter, something the old Elena would never have overlooked. Alexander told himself he was simply maintaining standards. The Grand Meridian was his flagship property after all, excellence in every detail. That's what separated his hotel chain from the competition. But if he was honest, and Alexander Sterling was always honest, at least with himself, his interest in Elena went beyond professional concern. She was different from the endless parade of socialites and executives who vied for his attention. Elena never lingered, never angled for conversation, never accidentally brushed against him. She moved through his space like a ghost, leaving everything perfect and herself invisible. Except Alexander had started seeing her. He noticed how she hummed old Spanish songs while she worked, the melody stopping abruptly whenever she remembered he might hear. He observed her pause at his bookshelf, fingers hovering over the worn spine of Garcia Marquez before she caught herself and returned to dusting. He'd even found himself timing his morning routine to coincide with her arrival, drawn by a curiosity he couldn't quite name. Then came the exhaustion, the trembling hands, the distant look in her dark eyes. And last Thursday, when he'd returned unexpectedly to retrieve forgotten documents, he'd found her crying in his bathroom. Silent tears she wiped away the moment she heard his footsteps, composing herself so quickly he'd almost thought he imagined it. "Is everything all right, Miss Morales?" he'd asked, the question formal despite the intimacy of the moment. "Perfectly fine, Mr. Sterling. My apologies, allergies." The lie was smooth, practiced. He should have let it go, should have returned to his meeting, his merger, his perfectly ordered life. Instead, that night, he'd called Marcus Chen, his head of security. "I need you to follow someone," Alexander had said, already hating himself, discreetly. Now, 72 hours later, Marcus stood in his private office with a manila folder and an expression Alexander couldn't quite read. "You're not going to like this," Marcus said, which was unusual. Marcus never editorialized. He presented facts, others drew conclusions. "Just tell me." Alexander's voice came out harsher than intended. He'd barely slept, imagining scenarios. Was Elena in trouble? Danger? Was someone threatening her? He'd convinced himself surveillance was about security, about protecting his employee. The alternative, that he was a billionaire boss spying on his maid because he couldn't stop thinking about her, was too problematic to acknowledge. Marcus opened the folder. Elena Morales, age 27, been with the hotel for 14 months, exemplary record, lives in a studio apartment in the Mission District, shares it with her younger sister Carmen, age 16. "I know all this. What's she doing at night?" "She leaves the hotel at her usual time, takes the bus home, stays for approximately 90 minutes. Then she leaves again." Alexander leaned forward. "Where does she go?" "Multiple locations. I have a list." Marcus. His patience was fraying. His security chief pulled out several photographs, spreading them across the mahogany desk. Alexander's breath caught. The first image showed Elena outside a rundown community center in the Tenderloin, her maid's uniform replaced by jeans and a simple sweater. The second captured her inside, surrounded by children, 8, maybe 10 of them, all watching her with rapt attention as she held up a book. "She volunteers," Marcus said. "Tuesday and Thursday nights. Reading program for underprivileged kids. Been doing it for 11 months. Alexander picked up the next photo. Elena at a hospital, this time in scrubs, pushing a cart through a corridor. Mercy General. Monday and Wednesday nights. She assists in the pediatric ward. Not officially employed, she's not qualified, but she helps the night nurses, reads to sick kids, comforts them when their parents can't be there." Marcus paused. "From what I gathered, she's something of a legend there. Kids ask for her by name." The fourth photograph made Alexander's chest tighten. Elena sat in a waiting room, head tilted back against the wall, clearly asleep. Someone had draped a blanket over her. Friday nights, Marcus continued, his voice gentler now. She takes her sister Carmen to physical therapy. Spinal injury from a car accident 2 years ago. Carmen's still recovering. Needs weekly sessions the insurance barely covers. Alexander couldn't speak. Couldn't look away from the images of Elena. Exhausted, overextended, running herself into the ground for everyone except herself. There's more. Marcus pulled out a financial report. I took the liberty of checking her situation. She's the sole provider for Carmen. Parents died in the same accident that injured her sister. Medical debt is substantial. She works 6 days a week at the hotel, sends most of her paycheck to cover therapy and medical bills. Lives on whatever's left. How is that even possible? Alexander's voice was barely a whisper. She should be. Why doesn't she qualify for assistance? Victim compensation? She did. It ran out. Carmen needs another year of therapy minimum to regain full mobility. The insurance company is fighting to deny claims. She's hired a lawyer, but lawyers cost money she doesn't have. Alexander closed his eyes. Jesus. That's not all. Marcus hesitated, which was even more unusual. Saturday nights, when you'd think she'd finally rest, she takes a second shift. Where? Cleaning offices downtown, commercial building, late-night crew, pays under the table, another $30 a night. The room seemed to tilt. Alexander gripped the edge of his desk. 7 days. Elena worked 7 days, multiple shifts, volunteered in whatever cracks remained, all while maintaining the poised professional demeanor he saw every morning when she arranged his coffee with hands that had every right to tremble. Sir? Marcus looked concerned. Are you all right? How did I not know this? How did no one know this? She's extremely private, never asks for help, never complains. HR has her listed as reliable, punctual, professional, no flags, no issues. She's invisible. Invisible. The word hit Alexander like a physical blow. He'd built an empire on seeing what others missed, and he'd missed everything that mattered about Elena Morales. No, worse. He'd noticed her exhaustion and responded by having her surveilled, treating her like a potential security risk, rather than a human being drowning in responsibilities. There's one more thing. Marcus pulled out a final document. I found this by accident. She's been taking online classes, pre-nursing program, studying in whatever spare moments she has, which can't be many. Top of her class. Of course she was. Of course Elena, working herself to the bone, was still pursuing a dream of helping others. Thank you, Marcus. That will be all. What do you want me to do with nothing? Destroy the file. This was a mistake. Marcus nodded, gathering the documents. At the door, he paused. For what it's worth, sir, I think you hired someone special. Would be ashamed to lose her. The words hung in the air after Marcus left. Alexander stood and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows of his office, looking out over the city he'd conquered. 43 years old. Net worth in the billions. Properties on 3 continents. A name that made boardrooms tremble, and he'd never felt more worthless than in this moment, staring at photographs of a 27-year-old maid who was more heroic in her exhaustion than he'd been in all his calculated successes. His phone buzzed. A reminder, gala tonight, $500 a plate charity fundraiser. He'd write a check, shake hands, be photographed looking philanthropic. The bitter irony wasn't lost on him. He'd donate more tonight for appearances than Elena would see in a year, and his contribution would be a rounding error in his quarterly earnings. Meanwhile, Elena gave everything, time, energy, sleep, health, and remained invisible. Not anymore. Alexander pulled out his phone and made a call. Janet? It's Alexander Sterling. I need you to prepare a comprehensive benefits review for all hotel staff, effective immediately. I want to know who's underinsured, who's struggling, who needs support. Yes, all properties, every employee. I don't care what it costs. He made 3 more calls in quick succession. His lawyer, his foundation director, his head of HR. Then he paused, staring at the photographs Marcus had left behind despite his order to destroy them. The problem with these solutions, Alexander realized, was that they were still about him, his money, his power, his ability to swoop in and fix things from on high. What Elena needed wasn't a billionaire savior, She needed recognition, support, dignity. She needed someone to see her, not as a problem to solve, but as a person, a remarkable person who'd been invisible for too long. The next morning, Alexander waited in his penthouse suite, more nervous than he'd been before any business negotiation. At precisely 8 a.m., Elena arrived with her cart. "Good morning, Mr. Sterling." Her voice was professional, tired. The shadows under her eyes had deepened. "Ms. Morales, do you have a moment? Please sit down." Confusion flickered across. Her face quickly masked. "Sir, I have 6 more rooms. They can wait. Please." She perched on the edge of his leather sofa, hands folded in her lap, back straight, waiting for criticism, for correction, for whatever judgment he was about to render. "I owe you an apology," Alexander began, "and an explanation." Her eyes widened slightly. Whatever she'd expected, it wasn't this. "I noticed you seemed tired, stressed. I was concerned, but instead of simply asking if you were all right, I had someone follow you." He watched her face carefully. "I know about the volunteering, the hospital, your sister, all of it." The color drained from Elena's face. Her hands, folded in her lap, began to tremble. Not from exhaustion this time, but from barely controlled emotion. "Am I fired?" Her voice was barely audible. "What? No. God, no." Alexander leaned forward. "Elena, I'm trying to apologize for invading your privacy. What you do on your own time is none of my business. I crossed a line. I haven't let my outside responsibilities affect my work," she said quickly, defensively. "I'm always on time. I complete all my duties. Your work is impeccable. That's not what this is about. Then what?" She looked up at him, and for the first time since he'd known her, Elena let him see past the professional mask. Her eyes held exhaustion, yes, but also pride, wariness, and something that looked like defeat. "What do you want from me?" The question struck him silent. What did he want? To help? To ease the burden she carried? To be the hero of this story? Or did he simply want her to look at him the way those children in the photographs did, with trust, with warmth, with something more than efficient professionalism? "I want," he said carefully, "to offer you a different position. My foundation needs a community outreach coordinator, someone who understands what it means to serve others, someone with vision and compassion and the kind of resilience you've demonstrated." Elena's expression hardened. "I don't need charity. It's not charity, it's a job. Salary commensurate with experience, full benefits package including health insurance that would cover your sister's therapy. You'd travel to our various properties, develop volunteer programs, coordinate with local communities. It's real work. Important work. Work you're already doing for free. We just pay you for it and give you resources to expand your impact." She stood abruptly. "Mr. Sterling," "Alexander, please." "Mr. Sterling," she continued firmly, "I appreciate the offer, but I don't accept handouts. I work for what I earn. And you'd be working. Elena, this isn't about pity. I'm offering you a position because you're qualified, more than qualified. You're doing the work of 5 people and you're exceptional at all of it. But you're also burning yourself out, and what good does that serve? It serves my sister. It serves those kids who need someone to read to them. It serves you. What about what serves you?" The question hung between them. Elena's jaw tightened. "I don't have the luxury of thinking about myself. Maybe you should, easy for you to say." Bitterness crept into her voice. "You live in a world where people compete for your attention, where a bad day means your stock drops a few points. You have no idea what it's like to—" She stopped, horror crossing her face. "I'm sorry. That was inappropriate." "No." Alexander stood, closing the distance between them carefully, respecting her space. "It was honest. And you're right. I don't know what it's like to fight the way you have, to carry what you carry, but I know strength when I see it. I know excellence, and I know when someone deserves better than what they're settling for." Elena's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Why do you even care?" It was the question Alexander had been avoiding, the one that made this entire situation complicated and inappropriate and potentially disastrous for both of them. Because somewhere between the hummed Spanish melodies and the perfectly arranged coffee, between professional distance and invisible presence, Elena Morales had become the most interesting person in his carefully constructed world. Because watching her cry in his bathroom had cracked something open in his chest, Because in a life insulated by wealth and power, she represented something real, something earned, something that mattered beyond quarterly profits and property acquisitions. But he couldn't say any of that. Not now, probably not ever. Because, he said simply, you're part of my team, and I take care of my team. That's what I should have done from the start instead of having you followed like some paranoid corporate drone. A ghost of a smile flickered across her face. That was pretty creepy, boss, unforgivably creepy, for which I am genuinely sorry. Elena studied him for a long moment, searching for something in his expression. Whatever she found seemed to satisfy her because her shoulders dropped slightly, the defensive tension easing. This job, she said carefully, it's real, not just invented to make you feel better about yourself? The position has existed for 6 months. We've been conducting interviews. No one has been right. He paused. You're right, I'd want it in writing. Contract, clear responsibilities, market rate salary that I can verify. Of course, and if it doesn't work out, if I'm not qualified or if this is some weird guilt thing, I want guaranteed return to my current position. No retaliation, smart, cautious, exactly what he should have expected. Agreed. I'll have legal draw up the paperwork. You can have your own lawyer review it. I can't afford. The company will provide legal consultation for the contract review. Standard practice for this level position. Elena bit her lip, thinking. Alexander forced himself to wait, to let her process without pressure. Finally, she nodded. Okay, I'll review the offer, thank you. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. Mr. Sterling, why were you really having me followed? Was it truly just because I seemed tired? The question deserved honesty. Alexander had built his empire on calculated moves and strategic withholding of information. But Elena, standing there in her maid's uniform with her spine straight and her eyes challenging him to be real, deserved better. At first, yes. But somewhere along the way, my concern became something else. He met her gaze, curiosity, interest, a completely inappropriate awareness that I'm your employer and you were my employee and I should have maintained better boundaries. A flush crept up Elena's neck. Oh, which is why, he continued quickly, this job offer is genuine and separate from any personal feelings that I will be keeping entirely to myself. If you take the position, it will be because you're qualified. Our working relationship will remain professional. You have my word, and if I don't take it, then you continue as you are, with no change in treatment or employment, and I'll still implement the benefits review I started yesterday for all staff, because learning about your situation made me realize how many others might be struggling invisibly. Elena's expression softened. You're full of surprises, Mr. Sterling. So are you, Ms. Morales. She left, and Alexander returned to his windows, watching the city wake up below. He'd done the right thing, offered help without strings, maintained professional boundaries, ensured Elena's dignity remained intact. So why did it feel like he'd just let something precious slip through his fingers? His phone buzzed with the first of 17 messages demanding his attention. Board meetings, investment opportunities, a business empire that required constant feeding. But for the first time in years, Alexander Sterling found himself hoping that someone would choose something other than his world, would choose themselves instead. And if Elena Morales walked out of his life, having never known how she'd affected him, how she'd made him question every comfortable assumption about value and worth and what actually mattered, well, maybe that was exactly how it should be. 3 days later, Elena submitted her formal acceptance of the position. She started the following Monday, and Alexander kept his promise. Their relationship remained scrupulously professional. But sometimes, when she thought he wasn't looking, Elena would catch him watching her with an expression she couldn't quite name. And sometimes, in the quiet moments between meetings and obligations, Alexander would remember a woman humming Spanish melodies while she worked, and wonder what might have been in a different world. But in this world, Elena Morales flourished. Her programs expanded across 12 cities. Her sister completed therapy and walked across her graduation stage. And Alexander Sterling learned that sometimes the greatest success wasn't in claiming what you wanted, but in helping someone else become everything they were meant to be, even if it meant watching from a distance, even if it meant staying invisible yourself. The end.